They improve air and water quality, reduce erosion, sequester carbon. For thousands of years, they've been a staple food source and that nourish native tribes. They're a playground for kids. They're a cool shade on a hot hike. They're iconic. And they're kind of a symbol of the California landscape. And yet they're vulnerable. And there's the loss of habitat, the rise of oak pests and pathogens, invasive species invasions, incompatible grazing practices, or climate change. There's concern that the periods of establishment, that kind of vulnerable window of opportunity for an acorn to develop into a seedling, those windows are shrinking into the future. And there's more intense fires, more frequent fires, more intense and longer droughts. So the concern for oak decline for several of the 20 different species of oaks in California isn't a new topic. A topic has been relevant for decades, and it really continues to be so. We know that about 70% of oak woodland habitat in California is in private ownership, and most of that land is primarily used for grazing. So those of us who care about oak woodlands, we naturally want to understand and learn from each other on how to have sustainable ranching and have healthy oak forest. In some situations, then it might be necessary to actively restore oak stands. And so in that pursuit, I'm really excited to introduce our speakers today who discuss what an oak tree project, restoration project entails, what are these projects suitable, and what kind of resources are there for you to help determine the best location for your project, and how can we better implement these types of projects moving forward in a kind of a working lands context. Before I get to that, I've been asked to share a little bit about the Healthy Soils program and how the Big Sur Land Trust got involved. So Big Sur Land Trust, the organization that I work for, is an accredited nonprofit that focuses on three main elements of our mission, which is healthy lands, healthy people, and healthy communities in Monterey County. And one of the ways we accomplished our mission is through the Working Lands program. And for the ranches that we manage, we use cattle operations as a management tool to achieve rangelands that are more resilient and support higher levels of biodiversity and ecosystem function and habitat structure. And like many or some of you, we've been pretty hard hit by the fires over the last few years. Most recently impacted by the river fire on our Marks Ranch property. There, most of our grazing infrastructure was destroyed. Many of the oaks also were impacted in the fire footprint. And on top of that, the front country pastures that didn't burn were impacted because they served as a staging area for hundreds, if not thousands, pieces of heavy equipment that were brought in to support the incident command center next door. So we got really fortunate to partner with the California Marine Sanctuary Foundation and to secure basically California Department of Food and Agriculture's Healthy Soils Program funding to help restore some of the native grasslands. And this is a funding mechanism that exists to basically incentivize practices and then create demonstration projects that contribute to improving soil health and reducing greenhouse gases through various practices like mulching or compost application or cover cropping. And it does include oak tree plantings or any kind of native planting. So I recommend you check out that resource. The application period is coming up this October, and more information can be found on the flyer. If you have any questions, contact one of us. We'll be happy to help. And the funding source comes from basically California Climate Investments, which is the cap and trade program for state. So on our project, we leveraged compost application and native planting practices to restore the impacted staging area and build healthier soils. And we're doing a research component to test the different combinations of those practices and monitoring the results. So it's through this project to recover the grasslands that we also realized that many of our oak stands lacked a healthy kind of age class diversity to them. Basically didn't see any young juvenile oak trees. And so the question was put forward, I think by Bruce initially, what is this area going to look like in 30, 50, 100 years from now? And so this got us thinking about pastures that are dominated by mature oaks, and in those special areas where we really feel it's important to have oak seedling establishment and expansion. Well, we need to understand the drivers of that decline and adjust our grazing practices to reduce the kind of livestock impact on the young oaks. And we might need to pursue some restoration. So without further ado, I'm excited to join you in kind of this learning experience here. Let me introduce our speakers. So first, we're going to have Bruce Delgado. There you are, Bruce. Bruce has been a botanist with the Bureau of Land Management since 1988. In 2002, BLM volunteers inspired and helped Bruce to begin planting and caring for coast live oak and valley oak trees on Fort Ord. Currently, there are approximately 150 oaks and 30 sycamore trees being grown on Fort Ord National Monument to replace dead or mature oaks and sycamores where there is no successful natural reproduction. BLM is about to launch a new initiative to inventory and plant and or protect more valley oaks in the southern eastern portion of the National Monument. Bruce also helps lead a small nonprofit, Citizens for Sustainable Marina, which has planted and cared for over 100 oaks within the city of Marina since 2013. He's also the mayor of Marina. Next, we'll have Dr. Gray Hayes speak. Since 1986, Dr. Gray has focused on agroecology and natural resource systems ecology and conservation along California's Central Coast. Gray received his PhD in environmental studies at UC Santa Cruz in 2003 and is published in scientific and popular forums on a variety of different topics, mainly on grassland ecology and restoration of rare species conservation. In addition to spare time work managing organic orchards and advising many groups about ecosystem management and conservation, Dr. Hayes is currently education and research coordinator for Swanton Pacific Ranch. Swanton Pacific Ranch is a field station on a working ranch focused on developing hands-on skills and education to students from California Polytechnic State University in San Luis Obispo. And finally, we'll hear from Hillary Brady. Hillary Brady is an ecologist with MAGIC, a Palo Alto-based public service organization. For more than 16 years, she accepted growing responsibility for planting for the second 100 years, which is a MAGIC project to regenerate oak populations on Stanford University lands. In recent years, she's presented on the project in an article for the Pacific Horticulture at the International Oak Society's Triennial Conference at UC Davis, in a Stanford University biology course about climate change ecology in diverse oaks for landscape resilience, a report commissioned by Stanford University, Land, Buildings, and Real Estate, and to various other community and professional audiences. So with that, I'll turn it over to Bruce. Thank you.